Hey guys, and welcome back. This is going to be episode 6 of the Manta 400 replica rebuild. You have to bear with me today guys, I've got a bit of a cold, so struggling a little bit, but we'll crack on. So as you can see there, we've got the rear axle, that's all been painted. I've just picked this up from my body shop and dropped it on some stands. So the plan here is we're going to start fitting all these brackets for the rear axle rear disc conversion kit that we've got. We're going to be pulling these half shafts out and fitting new gaskets because these gaskets are not the best. So the last thing I want is to rebuild this, put it all in the car, fill it with oil, take it on its first run when it's all done, and then have oil leaking out of these gaskets because I didn't bother changing them. So we're going to get new gaskets for there while we're at this point, just makes sense. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. We'll be fitting them brackets, and then we can fit the caliper hangers, start to mount the calipers, get all the trailing arms on. I'm actually going to dip these in the carbon fibre effect, same as I did with the front axle, and I'm also going to dip the panhard rod and the rear diff cover to tie in with the front axle a bit. We've got the rear discs there ready to go on, and we've got the brake pads over here ready to go on. I don't think I've got any cables for this, so I'll have to look into that. This axle is actually fitted with a Quaife LSD, which is the reason for using this axle. This isn't the axle that came with the car. This is an axle I already had, and that took off a previous build, which I fitted a ZF in. The Quaife diff is not the best, but it does the job. It's better than a standard axle. And it's all I've got in stock currently. I don't want the hassle of having to send an axle away to have a different kind of slippy diff fitted, waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for it to come back. So I just thought, I've got this here, that's already installed. I know it's good because I've already had it in another car which I've done a few thousand miles on. So just get this axle painted, and then I can start building it just to speed this process up a little bit, because currently the car is still mounted on this frame, which it got transported on when I had it brought over from Ireland. So the plan over the next few days, while I'm off work between Christmas and New Year, is to get the front and rear axle under this car and get it on its wheels. Now I'm not entirely sure which wheels I'm going to put on this yet, because I've actually done a 5-stud conversion on this, so it's now been converted to 5B120 PCD, and the only wheels I've got are these RX 5-spoke. They're like the Compomotives, and these BBS split rims. These are probably the ones I'm going to put on the car, which the other ones are there on my i240 at the moment, just for temporary, to get the car on the floor. Then obviously I'll send these off for refurb. Now the problem I've got is, if I use these, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get a big enough tyre on here to fill those arches on the foot with the 400 kit. Currently this is running, what size are these? Actually see a size on them. Oh yeah, 215 50 15, so that's not going to 50 17, sorry. So they're not going to be anywhere near wide enough. I could probably get a slightly wider tyre on there, but realistically it needs to be a hell of a lot wider for that kit. Now these RX alloys that I've got are actually a really nice alloy, but the problem with them is they're a metric rim, so the tyre sizes are different, and I don't think it's going to be very easy to get tyres for them. So I need to look into that and determine which rims I'm going to use on this build. Not entirely sure yet. So anyway, that's something to look into. But for now, I'll have to drop it on these. Might even have to go on odd rims for now, but at least it gets it on the floor to allow me to progress with it, because it's really difficult being on this frame. It just moves around all over the place when I'm trying to work on it. I don't particularly like getting in the car while it's on that frame, because I don't know how strong that is. So I really need to get this on the floor. So if I've got to put temporary wheels on it for now, that's what we'll do. So I'm going to crack on. I'm going to dig some gaskets out, and we're going to start to make some progress on getting this rear axle built up, and hopefully in this episode we'll get this finished and we'll get this under the car along with the front cross member under the car, get the car on the floor. Let's see where we get to. we're going to have a slight change of plan here, guys. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a 5-stud conversion for this car. Now, I've already fitted the 5-stud conversion on the front, which was pretty easy. Now, there's not many options available out there to convert the rear axle to 5B120. Now, I had these, which was fitted on an axle, which I got off a previous build. Now, I thought these were going to be quite easy to install, but having looked at this, now I've got this off the other axle and offered it up against here. Now, it is hub centric. It does fit in there pretty well with minimal play. Now, the idea would be to drill out those 5 holes in the middle and then bolt them on from the back. Well, the problem I've got is, no matter what position I put this in, there's a hole behind one of them, or half a hole. As you can see, it doesn't line up actually anywhere where it gives me enough meat to re-drill these, to fasten them on somewhere where I feel confident of them being strong. So that is going to cause me quite a hell of a lot of work. The only way to do this realistically would be to weld up a lot of these holes, grind it all back, and then re-drill those 5 bolts there to bolt this on to the half shaft. So that is quite a lot of work, which I wasn't expecting. Also on top of that, which sort of slipped my mind and I don't really know why, is that would mean that my discs are not going to fit onto the 5-stud hubs, and it's just going to create me a hell of a lot of work. So I think for now, guys, what we're going to have to do is build this up as a 4-stud. I have got some nice brand new wheels actually for the 4-stud. I'm going to have to put the front axle back into a 4-stud and fit the 4-stud front hubs, which is going to be a couple of hours work to rebuild that, but it's going to be less work than grinding and welding all these holes up without sort of flexing this and sending it out of shape, because obviously putting heat into that, I don't know if that's going to stay true, which I wouldn't find out until I drive the car, and I might have quite a tremendous wheel wobble, which I don't want. So for now, we're going to build this up. I can always look into this again at a later date and pull these half shafts back out even while it's on the car. It's just a matter of taking the wheel off, the hub, the disc off, sorry, unbolting these and pulling the half shafts back out. So what I might do, or what I am going to do, is build this up as a 4-stud, get the car on the floor so I can crack on and get all the work done that I need to do. I can get the car to a good stage. I have got other half shafts in my storage what I could actually mess about with in the meantime. So basically a half shaft is this, which we took out earlier from there. So I'm going to pull a couple of half shafts out of my storage container, possibly even send them to a machine shop to have these professionally welded, ground back. They can spin them up in the lathe and make sure that they're still true and straight. Then I can start to build it up as a 5-stud and look into what discs I'm going to need and whether them discs are going to fit alongside these calipers and everything else we've got. So unfortunately, guys, that is going to be for a later date now, because I want to get cracking with this car, and I do not want this 5-stud conversion holding this build up, because I cannot physically do anything now on this car until the running gear's in and the car's on the floor. So that's the plan. We're going to go back to 4-stud and then we'll look at this 5-stud conversion at a later date. So what we need to do now is get the wheel studs back through the half shafts, get them in there, and then we're going to sort of build the bracketry up for the calipers, which we've got knocking about here. We're going to figure out how these go on, figure out mounting the calipers, getting the discs on, and seeing how all this goes together. Now, as I mentioned again earlier, we are going to put some new gaskets on there. However, after looking, I thought these were the gaskets for there, but it turns out they're not. Unfortunately, they're not the right ones. What they should look like is this. So what we're going to do, because we don't have any of these in stock, I've looked through boxes and boxes of gaskets, what I've got knocking about, and I don't have any of them. Don't even know if they're available. However, what we do have is some gasket paper, which is the same grade, same thickness as this. So we're going to transfer that onto there. We're going to draw around this. We're going to cut this out, and we're going to make ourselves some new gaskets, and then we're going to put these on to the axle. Bit of a smear of gasket sealer just to make sure that's good. Then we can start getting it all bolted up, getting all the brackets on, moving into the brakes. So let's get to that now. Right guys, so if you've just seen there, we've put these brackets on. However, I've actually made a bit of a cock up here. I've just remembered on my last one, if you look there, we've actually got a hole which is part of the bracketry for the half shaft, which seals and obviously stops your oil coming out of this hole. Now on my last one, which I've just remembered after fitting all this, that you actually have to use a piece of the old backing plate from the drum. We've also had to fit some longer bolts in there to allow for these brackets, which is a 3-bolt pattern. So I've had to fit some longer bolts in there. Now unfortunately we have to take that back off, but sometimes this is what it's about. It's trial and error. You know, stuff does get forgotten about once you've not done this for quite a while. You forget about simple things like this. So what we've got to do now is, I've actually got spare axle down here. So normally you have this backing plate for your drum. Now what we've actually got to do, we're going to have to take these half shafts out of this donor axle, and we've got to cut this plate out of here, this centre section, because we need that to act as a spacer and actually seal the half shaft in to prevent the oil from leaking out, because there's a bit of a recess in the bottom there which we need. So to get that to seal, we've actually got to cut a section of this out. So we're going to get to that now. We're going to take these half shafts out, take these backing plates off, and then we're going to cut these sections out of there and install them sections onto this axle here. So unfortunately we're going back again a stage here, but as I said, it's trial and error. Things do get forgotten, so we'll get to that now, get this back off and get them spacers fitted. Right guys, so as you can see now that's built up. Now there was one or two cock-ups here again by me. I don't know whether this is just because I'm feeling a little bit under the weather or whether it was just me being daft. But anyway, what I'd done is I'd actually put these brackets on the wrong side of the hub. No idea why I thought that was going to work. But again, it's just one of them things. It happens. This is what my YouTube channel is all about, is helping you guys along. So hopefully now you've seen this, it'll prevent you guys from making the same mistake as I've made. So I've had to actually strip this back off, move these brackets around, have a little bit of a mess about with it, and then I've also fitted the correct bolts now. As you seen earlier, I was actually using temporary bolts because I didn't want to get gasket sealer and stuff all over the correct bolts while I'm trial fitting all this up. So now we've got the correct bolts in, the brackets are in the correct spot, we've got the caliper mounted on. I've just got these holding the disc on temporarily, just to keep this flush, so I know this is in its stop position, to make sure that this was all going to line up correctly as it should. So that's all now in place. So with that said, now we know what we're doing, and we've done it on this side a few times and learnt a few lessons. We're now going to get this side done, move along to here, pull this half shaft out, and then start to do what we did on that side. We're going to fit the new gasket, put all the brackets on, get this built up. I'm going to hydro dip the rear diff cover in the carbon fibre effect, same as we did with the front cross member. There's not a lot of carbon fibre stuff I can do to the back end, because obviously I can't dip the full rear axle. First of all, it contaminate the tank, because obviously it's oily and stuff, so I don't want that getting in our hydro dipping tank. Secondly, it's too heavy, and also I would have to do it in two halves. I'd have to dip one half, mask it off, flip it over and dip the other half. It's just too much effort for what I'm going to gain from this. So I'm just going to tie some bits of carbon into this back end where I can. So we're going to do the diff cover, the trailing arms and the panhard rod, and get them done in carbon fibre. I might even do the torque tube as well, and the cross brace for the rear axle. So we're going to move on now. This side's done, get that side done. Hopefully that's the back axle finished, ready to go under the car, and we can move on into something else. Right guys, so there we have it. That's both sides now built up. We've got the rear disc conversion finally figured out and installed on there. So the next thing I need to do with this is hydro dip that rear diff cover, figure out if I'm going to hydro dip the torque tube and the rear axle cross member, the mounting point at the front. I also need to find the poly bushes that go on the rear axle anti-roll bar. I've got the brackets, but I've not found the bushes yet, so I need to dig them out, can get them installed, probably mount that up onto the axle while it's off, because it can be quite difficult to get these in. So we'll deal with that. Probably not going to video all that bit, it's not very exciting. I'm not going to bother videoing the hydro dipping of the rear diff pan. You've seen the hydro dipping stage, so we'll leave that be. I am going to try and hydro dip these trailing arms, just so it's got a little bit of something to tie the carbon fibre effect in to the front axle, because as I said earlier, there's not really much more I can put into carbon fibre now on this rear axle other than these last little bits and bobs. So I'll give you a little look at that. That's come out really well. Back axle's looking really nice there. sorted. So once that's all built up and we've got the diff pan on and the torque tube and everything else, I need to figure out how I'm going to get this car off this frame. I think I'm going to end up having to use the forklift truck. I'm going to have to get a pallet under there with the fork extensions, lift the car up, remove this frame, and then pull the frame out the way and sort of lower the car down onto the axles. It's probably going to be the easiest way. I don't really want to start putting jacks and stuff under my axles that I've just painted. So I will get a pallet, probably protect that pallet with some rubber matting or some cloths, blankets, whatever, just so we don't damage any of the paint on the underside of there. There's not a lot of weight in that at all. It's a bare shell, you've got to bear in mind at this point, so there's not a lot of weight in that once we're lifting it with a stacker, so hopefully we can do that without causing any damage. But for now, I think I'm going to cut this episode here, guys, and leave it as that. We've done an episode on the front axle, getting all that built up, so we'll leave this episode on getting the rear axle built up. On the next episode, we'll start to get these axles under the car, and hopefully get this thing on the floor and start making some decent progress over the next few days on this and start getting some stuff bolted on. So that's it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one.